Hey kids, it's Jurassic James, and it's Jurassic Plains looking at Qianzhousaurus. So here's an animal that, again, it's a Tyrannosaur. I promised that thing last week. And what's really interesting is, of course, we have the newer, or the older and newer, and these are the relatives in this environment here. But the thing to point out is that this is a newly discovered dinosaur. And so you've seen my other videos, when a species has been known for a long time, you see the changes, like the iguanodon or the triceratops, a lot of changes over time. This guy's relatively new. You know, it looks the same in both forms. So first of all, I'm going to go over, let's see. This is a 2020, no, that can't be right. No, 20. I thought it said 2026. No, this is 2023. Yeah, so basically it's a safari figure, and this is the first exposure to this animal. I actually had not heard of it for a while. And so the idea is that it's from Asia, Mongolia. And what's really neat about this, I'm going to go over more with the Tyrannosaur family tree, but it's just the way, it's a beautiful model. I mean, this Safari one is awesome. And it does say Safari, right? Am I saying the wrong name? Yeah, it is Safari. And so what I like about it, again, not that they found skin impression, but the skin looks really neat. I noticed that, I would say maybe 10, 12 years ago, you know, there's big scale sometimes, there'd be, you know, weird patterns. But with these newer models, they do this kind of like this textured skin. And that's really neat too. Now, one thing to point out is this long, its face. And so because the name, it's actually named after the town, well, the traditional name is after the region or town is found there. And so it's spelled like Qianzhousaurus, which roughly it's this Qianzhousaurus in English. And so the way you can find it easier if you just Google Pinocchio lizard or Pinocchiosaurus, because it has a very long nose. This nose is really long compared to its head, especially for a Tyrannosaur. And so again, I mean, just basic parts we have, the hands are palm to palm, that's really great. The feet, they're 3 toes forward, there's a dew claws in the back. I mean, all the parts are here. This is like a perfect model. I love it so much, right? And so again, if you can't order across the seas or online and get the PNSO, the Safari one's really good too. Now, speaking of that, we have the PNSO figure, and again, oops, there you go. Using the official scissors of Jurassic James, we will now release the beast, and okay, put that there or something, I don't know. And let's see. Okay, yeah, just open it up. Pull the guy out, and like all PNSO, there's nothing in the box. Like all PNSO figures, there's some paperwork that comes with it in multiple languages. But basically, you get essentially a poster of the animal. Oh, that's cool. And you see the picture just right for you. Like you can see there the percentage of skeleton found. So it's really neat. So if you didn't, after the holotype, it's like the skull, the neck, part of the hip, and one of the leg bones, some tail bones in the middle, towards the base and at the end. So again, you say, well, how do you know it's a Tyrannosaur? We'll get over that in a minute. But the actual figure, okay, he has a stand too. So here we go. We're gonna take this off. And I think I mentioned before that I don't personally like it when they need the stands, because I understand why, because these animals are bipedal and in life they're balancing a certain way. Oh, this is neat. So the little stand has like PNSO on it, like there. And so you can see it, say that in the clear plastic. And here's the animal itself. I will take this here. Okay, so I'm going to throw things back. Normally I keep PNSO, but I don't know, I just do. I don't know, they're just really neat boxes. Let's see, put that there. And there we go. And for safety reasons, we receive the official scissors, Jurassic James. There we go. And put that there. Now, looking at the figure itself, again, okay, so with this one, the static Safari model, the mouth is just open. On this one, there's articulation in the mouth, so the mouth can open like this. You can really get a sense of how narrow the skull is, like how much of the jaw is. Like it's way more, I think, than either Tyrannosaur. And I'll explain why in a second. So you can see the scales are very similar. 3 toes in the front, dew claw in the back. Again, it's gonna cost more, so therefore it will be more detailed, basically. But again, sitting side by side, these two animals, you know, the PNSO is a little bit longer, I believe, yeah. And if I put this one here, the stand, if you put like right there, I assume, or here, On the picture, okay. No, not in the picture. Yes, right there, maybe the front, just in case I won't fall over. One side is longer than the other, and so it helps you kind of stand that way. But it stands by itself anyway. So again, it's called Pinocchio lizard. And I will say this: whenever I hear the name Pinocchio, I don't think about this dinosaur. I think about Shrek. I think it's Shrek 2, when they're trying to like break them out, break Shrek and Donkey and put some boots out. And so Pinocchio's on the line, and they're like, "Say something alive so your nose will grow." And Pinocchio goes, and then I think the gingerbread man goes, say something crazy like, "I wear women's underwear." And Pinocchio goes, "I wear women's underwear." And his nose doesn't grow at all. And they're all like, "Huh?" He goes, "Do you wear women's underwear?" And he's like, "No." And starts growing then. Anyway, so the idea here is that it's a very long, narrow snout. Now, for a person who knows about Tyrannosaurs, that's really weird, especially if you know Tyrannosaurs historically or through North America. That stands out. Now, before I go to the actual why, or what we think, I want to point out in the environment it's found in, they find a lot of They find a lot of oviraptors. Now, this is actually oviraptor from from the same region as Velociraptor. So again, they don't make the model of the species found with them. And again, you say, well, they only find oviraptors there mainly. Well, the idea is that it could be fossil bias, that certain things just preserved certain ways. And so there are, we believe, sauropods, hadrosaurs, other things in the environment, but they find mainly that in that same layer. But as far as the features and where it fits in, I'm going to go do a quick family tree of Tyrannosaurs, kind of break this down to you, because to find a Tyrannosaur like this, you would say it's kind of weird, it's unusual, but actually I'm betting you this, that this is normal. And I'll just say normal, well, not really normal, because there's more of them with the bigger jaws. Anyway, I'll explain. So, in a Tyrannosaurida, the bigger grouping, that includes like all these guys here. Now, there's one branch called Proceratosaurids, and what I've done here is a Jurassic World one, and here is the collect a because for some reason they give them these tiny tails. They just don't care. I don't know what's going on there. And so I personally take offense to that. They're like, should we make the tail appropriately sized? Like, no, forget Jurassic James. And so let's see. That's where my ego goes. I told a friend of mine that if you're on YouTube, you're narcissist, and they're like, no, you're not. I said, you're taking videos of yourself and you're putting them and you're recording things and you're editing it. That's narcissistic in my opinion. So Proceratosaurus here, relatives, or I will disclaimer this. There are a lot of different interpretations of this family tree, and so not like I'm saying I'm picking the one that makes most sense to me, but I'm giving you the overview of the concept. Some animals maybe move around here or there, but in general, the Proceratosaurus here and the Guanlong, these are early to middle to late Jurassic Tyrannosaur relatives, and so they are about like this tall, and they have these crescent heads. In fact, the one from early Cretaceous living in China, which is only a Jurassic World toy, but called Sinotyrannus, this guy is thought to be in that branch too, which is interesting. They didn't find this part of the skull, but they put the crest on it anyway because they're saying what's in his branching, and so that's why that's a Proceratosaurus branch. In some situations, D-Long from early Cretaceous China, Liaoning, this is a Safari 2003 figure. So this guy also is put in. So think of the feathered dinosaurs. This is the site where he's from, right? Whereas these are Jurassic, and actually these are both early Cretaceous, Jurassic. So they're all considered the Proceratosaurus group. Within Tyrannosaurid, you have what we consider basal. So I think basal. We don't use the word primitive in science. In general, we say, or because primitive implies all these different things. It's just an earlier form. And so the Eotyrannus, I mentioned that last week with the dinosaurs of Britain, and then the Eutyrannus, the largest feathered dinosaur ever found, about 30 feet long. These guys are kind of the base of that other tree. Now, what's really neat about this? Oh, and so then there's these are all from like mainly Asia, and one Britain, and China, right? Looking at the Americas, we know Tyrannosaurus rex. That's the big guy here, and we know. Okay, and we know the Spletosaurus, which I think did a video already on the species. And so these guys are, one branch here. Now, in the Tyrannosaurid, there are another group called the Gorgosaurus. Oh, I'm sorry. That's the Papo figure of Tyrannosaurus, and the Spletosaurus is 2021 Safari. The Gorgosaurus here is a Papo figure, and they don't put a year in their stomach. This is a Bertosaurus 2003. And so I already done a video on another Bertosaurus. So they are closer to these guys, but still their own little group here, but not with these guys. And so then there's another grouping here of the Chinese Tyrannosaurus, or from Asia in general. So I mentioned Tarbosaurus before, it kind of sits out here. And then I did a video on Allioramus. Actually, it's Allioramus. I say Allioramus all the time. I don't know why. I forget the O. But I've done a video on this guy already. And what made Allioramus really interesting is that the two, there ought to be two species, and they're both juveniles. I'll remind you that with dinosaurs, we judge their age based on the rings in their bones, like tree rings. And from Tyrannosaurus rex in particular, it's been interpreted that from birth to 12, they're very scrawny and skinny. And then from 12 to 18, they get really, really massive. And I always say like they died before they're 30 or around 30, because Sue in Chicago is 29. But most Tyrannosaurs die in their 20s, like their mid to early 20s. Sue in particular was just a really hardy, tough Tyrannosaur for her to get to 29 years old. And so when they found Allioramus, the different, I'm using the Jurassic World and then the, there's no name here, let's see, there has to be a name. Collect A, of course, 2008. So these two versions of using different species. And so they found them and they both were juveniles. So even to this day, we don't fully know how large Allioramus can get because we found many juveniles. So at the point of the discovery, it was like, let's put them to the side here. There's these juvenile Tyrannosaurus, but what made them unique, or at the time really special, is they had this ridge of rugose bones here. Now rugose means rough. And so, for example, on your bones, like if you were to X-ray or touch through your skin, you can feel your bones very smooth. The points where muscles attach, it's very rough because that's where the tendons attached to your muscles. And so rugoses are for rough. And so there are rugose kind of like bumps and notches here on the end of the nose. So that kind of stood out, right? And of course, let's see, the Asia Qianzhousaurus, which is another early Tyrannosaur, kind of close to that branch, is there. I did a video on this one a couple weeks ago. It's Collect Day as well. And I will kind of mention that the Intrepidus Morris is another kind of earlier mid-Tyrannosaur. And so we know Tyrannosaurs by these really big guys, like Tyrannosaurus rex and Daspletosaurus, and but the Tyrannosaur family started very small and scrawny. And the idea behind that would believe, what we in paleontology have believed, is that the Allosaur group, those bigger predators, took over. They were dominant in the Jurassic. The Tyrannosaurs stayed small. In the Cretaceous, the Tyrannosaurs again stayed medium to small, in early Cretaceous to mid Cretaceous. And right around late Cretaceous times, the large predators began dying off. The Carcardinosaurus in Africa, Giganotosaurus in South America, they all began dying off, right? And even North America, we had Acrocanthosaurus. And so the Tyrannosaurs were there, and they were smaller, and then when those other guys went away, the Tyrannosaurs got bigger. And so in our minds, our being, I guess, Westerners, particularly minds, you see a Tyrannosaurus rex and Daspletosaurus and these Gorgosaurus, you go, oh, these guys are these huge animals with giant jaws. That's what a Tyrannosaur is. And so looking for their ancestors, and we go, okay, well, we've seen these smaller animals here. That's kind of weird. But then you look at this guy. This is when our Pinocchiosaurus comes in. And it seems, first of all, when they found this guy, the first question was, is it juvenile or something else? But it was bigger. It was like 29, 30 feet long. And so it was bigger, and also the bones in the skull are fused. If you don't know, if you were a younger animal or juvenile, your skull, I mean, it depends on the species, but the bones in your skull fuse more as you get older, right? And so, as you're growing up. And so, I mean, we don't find geriatric dinosaurs. Possibly some sauropods, but I'll get beyond that. But the idea is that as they get older, the bones fuse. So the one they found was clearly either an adult or like subadult, like right at, they're not fully adult, they may be still kind of growing a little bit. And so, first of all, finding this guy with those very similar rugose bumps on here. These five or six little bumps you see there, that is in the skull. We have that in the skull. You can look up online. And that was very similar to Allioramus. And they said, oh, this guy, they're in one group. So they have their own family now, the Allioramus family. So we see Tyrannosaurs in Asia being usually scrawnier, smaller. So my analogy would be like imagining the North American Tyrannosaurs like lions or tigers, and the Asian ones like cheetahs and leopards. They're smaller, they're more scrawny compared to the other group. Now, the question is why? And the answer is we don't know. But the hypothesis is as followed. Essentially what's going on is, well, one of the hypotheses is if you look at ceratopsians, the horned dinosaurs like Protoceratops and their relatives, except for maybe one, if not two species, I know of one for sure, all of the ceratopsians in Asia have like no horns, and they're usually smaller. And these ceratopsians, like these guys, all the big horned ones, are from North America. So it has been hypothesized that maybe the Tyrannosaurs in North America got bigger and more like beefy because they're hunting these ceratopsians, whereas these guys are hunting different kinds of well, these small ceratopsians, because we see hadrosaurs in both environments, the duckbills, and so there's not a big change there that I'm aware of. But the ceratopsians are very different, and so again, if you look at an herbivore, a big thought is, well, people look at herbivores and go, oh, they're features of to fight off predators. So you look at Triceratops, this big horns and frail. It's living with T-Rex. He's this giant predator. He's fighting that giant predator. Look at Ankylosaurus. You have this big club on his tail left to fight the T-Rex, right? But what we're realizing now in paleontology is that a lot of these animals most likely didn't evolve those features for defense. They can use them for defense, obviously, but they would also may have used them for maybe intraspecies, like fighting for mates. And again, this is very anecdotal, but here's an idea. If you look on this thing called YouTube, and you look at someone talking about science or talking about history, there's a lot of views here and there, but the stuff on dating is like, my goodness, it's the numbers, it's like, if I want to get more views, I don't ask you to subscribe or like, I just start talking about relationships and dating, and they'll just shoot to the roof, apparently. But the idea here is that in the fossil record, again, there's a big drive towards mating, right? And so you're trying to find mates. And so one example of this is that the Ankylosaurs, new discovery, shows that the side of their bodies have damage on their scutes, which means the Ankylosaurs, probably males, are lining up together and hitting each other with their tails like that, right? And so that's something that, the club can use as a Tyrannosaur, but you're also going to use it more looking for mates. So, but that's herbivores. With carnivores, they're hunting. So obviously herbivores looking at feeding methods and teeth and jaws and all the stones they swallow from species. But Tyrannosaurs or any other predator or dinosaur, you're looking at what are they hunting? So the Allosauruses have the big hands and claws, and they have smaller heads by comparison because they're hunting sauropods. You don't want to bite into a sauropod head of bone. The bones are as big as me. So they have smaller teeth but bigger claws. Tyrannosaurs in North America have giant jaws and tiny arms where they're biting and crushing things. Well, in Asia, these Tyrannosaurs are not, to us in the West, in North America, they're weird. But in fact, they actually line up more with the ancestry group. The ancestors had narrow, small snouts because that's what worked for them. And these guys only kept that design, whereas they went bigger. And so this is just a working hypothesis. I'm looking, they just found it very recently, so these animals aren't, people are looking at ideas and peer review and all that. But just in general, this is where it fits in. So there's the Alioramus group, there's the Albertosaurus group, and there's the Tyrannosaurs, and then there's other Tyrannosaurs like the Protoceratosaurs, like this group. So that's kind of how we break them all down. And you can go online and find all these charts, and here's all the names and stuff, and people debate about that based on bone structure and morphology. I'm not getting into all that. I'm just trying to explain to you like this kind of branching of the family tree and why this guy is called Pinocchio. He's a very narrow little smell. That is so weird tonight. I mean, that's why it's fun to travel and study other species, because it's just that we see, Tyrannosaurs have big heads. No, they don't. Some of them were smaller. I also want to point out this guy was featured, I should say gal, the female, in Apple TV's Prehistoric Planet. There's a scene there. And I want to point out that Prehistoric Planet, in some of the Curiosity Stream shows, they are doing primarily late or in Cretaceous dinosaurs, because plants, I'll just say it that way. This is just cut ahead. The idea is that angiosperm flowering plants that we would recognize today, the ones that change colors in the winter and all that, those show up in angiosperms are Cretaceous entirely, as far as appearance, but they are proliferated and more dominant in late Cretaceous. And so if they were to do Jurassic dinosaurs, they could not film outside because there's angiosperms everywhere, and so they have to film. So if you were filming a Jurassic documentary, you have to make up your own environment and make up your trees and stuff. But if it's Cretaceous, you already have flower plants that are like today, but back then you just film it there. So I keep saying the name, Qianzhousaurus. This guy is just in this environment. They just film the environment, basically, right? Anyway, that's a little science hack. If you want to know what we're doing next week, it'll be Protoceratops. I didn't realize I have not done Protoceratops. That's such an iconic dinosaur, but I haven't done it. So here's this one here. Foreshadowing, I guess you want to call it that. But anyway, so that's these. And again, thank you for tuning in. If you're still watching this at this point, my goodness. I appreciate you all for tuning in and sharing your comments and thoughts and everything. I did get your requests about the different environments and different, like Australia versus South America dinosaurs, and I will be doing some videos like that. But I have to get through a lot of, I have like 2 more different species I have to go through. That being said, I'll see you guys next week, and thank you for tuning in. I appreciate you.